Hello, friends. Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, November 6th through Sunday, November 12th, 2023. This week, we are still recovering from eclipse season. I know some of you may hear me talking about eclipse season and go, what? Aren't we done with that? Doesn't he know we don't have any more eclipses left? And yeah, while that may be true, we still haven't finished the lunar cycle where we just had that full moon lunar eclipse back on October 28th. Okay, so in other words, remember that full moon lunar eclipse was in Taurus, right? And the moon has only transited to Leo as we start out this week. So we're just coming off of that third quarter moon that we had. And basically, we are still wrapping up this same lunar cycle where we just had that eclipse, all right? And really, this entire lunar cycle began with that new moon solar eclipse only on October 14th. So just understand that, this is still intense times. We're also in Scorpio season at the same time as this, much of this eclipse season. So that kind of doubles the intensity. So we are still very much dealing with all that. If you don't believe me, look around. No one is all right now. We are all handling these intense changes the best we can and doing our best to adapt, right? So a lot of intensity that's still kind of plaguing us, if you will, as we start out this week. All right. That is set to change though. So for one, we are eventually going to close out this lunar cycle. That will happen after this week with a new moon that will actually happen, on the first day after what we'll cover in this forecast. But also, two major events that will happen within this week are, we have not just one, but two inner planets changing signs, right? That's a big deal. The inner planets color so much of our personal kind of day to day and week to week experience, right? So, Mercury and Venus will both be changing signs. Not only that, but they'll both be changing signs from yin signs to yang signs. So, that basically means at the start of the week, they're both in energies that are much heavier, kind of intense and pressurized. By the end of the week, they'll be in lighter signs. They'll allow us to kind of breathe and be a little bit more spontaneous. How this will affect you personally, just like with anything else, of course, it depends on your own natal placements. But generally speaking, for everyone, I think this is a breath of fresh air. I think we could use some yang energy. We've dealt with such heavy, intensified, pressurized energy again with that combination between Scorpio season and eclipse season that I think we could use some fun light energy. Mercury entering Sagittarius, Venus entering Libra. They're both supporting us in being a little bit more spontaneous. Let's be conversational. We don't have to take everything so seriously like we would with these heavy Scorpio and Virgo transits. Not that there's anything wrong with those. There's a purpose to everything. There's pros and cons to everything in astrology. I love a good Scorpio transit or Virgo transit. But again, I can't help but to feel excited for these planets moving into the much lighter signs of Sagittarius and Libra. Mercury moving into Sagittarius in particular really supports us in thinking outside the box. Because remember, Mercury is in detriment in Sagittarius. It's definitely not the worst detrimented energy to experience. Mercury in Sagittarius is kind of philosophical, intellectual, but again, it being in detriment shows that we're kind of thinking, our thinking and communication, as well as the information we may be coming across over the following weeks after Mercury enters Sagittarius, all of that may become, again, kind of outside the box, a bit stranger in nature. Things that we might not normally pay attention to, we may be paying more attention to with Mercury in Sagittarius. We may be communicating in a different way, a way that's maybe more unusual or provocative. And then again, that kind of colors the nature of the information we're coming across as well. So, yes, that is a detrimented energy. Detriment placements can make us feel a little bit, out of our element, so to speak, or a little bit alien, a little bit foreign. But at the same time, that may be just what's needed to get outside of the box and to approach things in a new way. Venus moving into Libra is kind of a completely different story. Venus was in fall in Virgo, so it's very challenged there. In other words, the pleasure, the desire, the abundance. All of that has been difficult to connect with Venus and Virgo. We've had to really work hard for our pleasures. We've had to look for pleasure in ways that we might not normally look for those types of things, right? We may have had to enjoy things that we wouldn't typically think of as enjoying, right? And there could definitely be some good in that, but it is a challenging energy. So this completely changes this week with Venus entering Libra. Venus is in domicile in Libra. So this means that, Venus, which bestows upon us so much desire, pleasure, abundance, it's going to be acting a lot, or she's going to be acting a lot more like her normal self with Venus in Libra, right? In particular, we may be really enjoying those conversations, relationships. Venus in Libra is basically telling us, hey, lighten up. Let's enjoy each other's company. At the end of the day, we're all human. We're all doing the best we can. Let's have a little fun. Let's enjoy each other's energies. Let's have a good time. We don't have to, take everything so seriously and work so hard like we did with Venus and Virgo. That's the past. I'm almost picturing Venus drunk in Libra, but that's probably not a good characterization. But anyway, I am excited for those two developments. In other news, the moon will be transiting from Leo through Scorpio this week. For much of the week, Moon is, did I say Venus? Moon is transiting from Leo to Scorpio. And for much of the week, Moon is in some pretty decent signs, some signs that are pretty easy for it to transit through. Leo, Virgo, Libra, these are relatively easy signs for the Moon to be in. It won't be until the very end of the week where the Moon is in Scorpio that we may feel a little bit more unsettled with the Moon in fall, right? However, by then we'll be gearing up for that new moon that is just outside of this forecast. And so, yes, we may be unsettled, but that is the least active part of the lunar cycle. So that gives us kind of a shot at being kind of chill, a little bit subdued. The unsettled energies will be mostly affecting our subconscious. They're ethereal. They're not very tangible. So, of course, there's pros and cons to that. And really, that's all I have to say before we get into the day-by-day forecast. Other than, I did think this week was interesting because almost every single week we have either a quarter moon, a new moon, or a full moon, right? Because these things happen every week, roughly every 7 days. The difference with this week is that we just had that third quarter moon on Sunday the 5th, so one day before what I'll be covering here. So I'm showing the chart for that now. And then we'll have that new moon one day after what I'll be covering here. So it's just kind of timed weirdly that we don't have any major lunar event this week. But so it's going to be more of a casual forecast, and I'll talk about, of course, the inner planets changing signs again, and then we'll go through the day-by-day forecast. I'm not even going to advertise my readings. I've been doing that the last few weeks, so I think you guys got the memo. If you want a reading, you know how to hit me up. Oh, I did want to mention you can purchase readings directly through my website. I don't think a lot of people realize that. Maybe I could orient my website better. I'm not sure. I'm still figuring a lot of this out. But anyway, let's get into the day-by-day forecast here. All right, so we start out Monday, November 6th. I'm going to talk a lot about the third quarter moon, not a lot, but if you hear me talking about that and you go, why is he talking about that? Doesn't he know that it's on Sunday the 5th? I know the third quarter moon is technically one day before this. However, look at the chart. Moon is still in Leo, so if we go back really briefly to Sunday, this is almost the exact chart for that third quarter moon, right? Sun in Scorpio, moon in Leo, squaring the sun, right? That was that third quarter moon. Compare the chart to noon Eastern Standard Time on Monday. Moon is still in Leo. So, no, we aren't technically dealing with the third quarter moon on Monday, but in real terms, like, we very much are still dealing with it, okay? Sun is obviously still in Scorpio. Moon is still in Leo. So, we're still dealing with that gridlock, that intensity that occurs when you combine Sun and Moon in these signs that square each other. Not only that, but Scorpio and Leo are particularly fiery and intense. They're very passionate. And especially when you combine them like this, it creates kind of an explosion. It creates steam because we're mixing water with fire. Steam, what does steam do? It makes it hot, right? So it makes things intense, passionate. That could be kind of sexual, or it could be too hot. I'm burning up here. Get me out of here. It also makes things, it obscures the visibility, right? When there's so much emotion and passion and intensity, you may not be really, thinking clearly because of that steam, so to speak. That's about as far as I'm going to go with that analogy, but you get what I'm saying. So we're still very much dealing with that on Monday. Third quarter moons they basically provoke us to take action or make some kind of change. Much of that is physical, but much of that is also kind of subconscious or philosophical. So change your attitude, change your mindset in some kind of way. this doesn't have to be bad if we look at it that way, but unfortunately so many of us, not like us, but so many people aren't into astrology at all, and so they'll be caught off guard with this type of energy. They're going to be anxious, stressed, irritable. There could be, it wouldn't surprise me if there's like public events, like, people getting triggered and kind of blowing up, things like that. So yeah, but honestly, as far as energies go for Monday, I have this kind of uncontrollable cough, so I'm sorry if it comes out of nowhere. It's really bad. It's so annoying. But as far as Monday energies go, this does have a lot of the ingredients that I would like to see for a recipe for the perfect Monday. Because I do like energies that are kind of bringing us into action, right? For those of us that do work Monday through Friday, I actually don't, but for those that do, I would like to see some kind of energy to kind of rile us up a little bit on Monday. Let's get into action, let's be productive, right? So this will definitely do that, but this may be over the top. This may be, provoking too much intensity, too much action. It could be a bit chaotic. That may be an understatement, okay? This dynamic does change pretty dramatically in the early afternoon Eastern Standard Time because Moon will leave Leo and enter Virgo. Okay, so what does that mean? Typically, excuse me, I'm going to try to get through this the best I can. Typically, when planets move from Leo to Virgo, it's kind of a rude awakening, right? I love a good Virgo energy, but I've just noticed that this can be difficult to deal with because it's such a wake up call. We have to be responsible, practical, disciplined, organized. Who has time for that? We just want to have fun, like these Leo energies. So it can be kind of difficult to move into Virgo, right? Where the moon is going. However, whenever we talk about the moon, here's a little tidbit for those of you that are learning astrology. Whenever you talk about the moon, you have to understand where the sun is because the moon's light completely comes from the sun, right? I mean, I guess you could say that for everything else in our solar system, pretty much, but the moon especially, the way we perceive the moon and experience it, its whole visible shape, it's completely dependent on the sun, right? So anyway, in this case, yes, the moon is moving into Virgo. That would typically be kind of a heavy energy. It still is a heavy energy, but the moon is now, leaving that square aspect that it made from this with the sun, and it's approaching a sextile aspect. So it's becoming less intense, less pressurized, less chaotic. It's gradually becoming more harmonious, more stable, and we'll really feel that kind of boosted with Moon entering Virgo because Virgo blends so famously well with Scorpio, right? Sun in Scorpio, Moon in Virgo now for much of the latter half of the day, Eastern Standard Time. These energies are similar. They blend together. We got, a little bit of water, a little bit of heavy emotion from the Scorpio energies, and then that practicality and groundedness from Virgo. So they blend together so well. It's like chef's kiss, right? I'm not going to do it, but you get what I'm saying. Okay, so that's the main kind of overlying. That's the main focus for today. There are two aspects I wanted to briefly mention, though. So the first is Venus at 28 degrees Virgo, making a waning trine, if you want to be technical, with Pluto at 28 degrees Capricorn. I think this is really beautiful, but in kind of a dark sort of way, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So remember what I said in the intro. I'm starting to slur my words. I do that when I talk too fast, but remember what I said in the intro about how Venus is still in Virgo. She is still in fall. She's exiled. She's out of her element, out of her place, so to speak. Venus has a troubled time in Virgo, right? And Venus is on her way out of Virgo, but she still has those last few degrees to go through. So, things are kind of intensifying. They're reaching a boiling point, but also progressing toward a change that's on the horizon, right? There's easier times ahead. Venus in Libra is not too far away, but we still have to go through these really heavy themes of Venus transiting these last few degrees of Virgo before we get there, right? So kind of heaviness involving, where's the pleasure? Where's the desire? It's hard to connect with, right? Just hang in there. Before Venus enters Libra, she has to make this trine to Pluto. So this is bittersweet at best, right? Venus is in a troubled place. She's having this conversation with Pluto in a very stable way. They're seeing eye to eye. They've got that good rapport. They're having a great conversation. They're having a great connection. But remember who we're talking with. Remember who the characters are that are involved. Pluto is this, dark figure, like god of the underworld. He's not necessarily evil, but he is brutal and tough, right? He's fair, but he's brutal and he's destructive in his nature. So he's kind of this dark, twisted figure, and he's having this nice conversation with Venus, who's typically, all love and beauty, but she's in kind of a dark place, right? So basically, how I would translate this is, what do you find pleasurable? What do you desire? On a deeper level, what do you value? What do we all value, right? The very nature of what we value, what we find attractive, has likely changed dramatically over the last few weeks. And it's continuing to change dramatically with this type of dynamic, um, especially in terms of or related to darkness, deep, what's going on beneath the surface, what's going on a real level at the core. What do I mean by that? Like at any core, all the cores, what's going on at your core, what's going on at the core of whoever's in your life, what's going on in the core of your relationship, the core of how you support yourself, the core of what you find attractive and what you find pleasurable, and how you go after those things. What are the dark truths in all of those matters that you may not necessarily always want to think about? Pluto is going to take those things and kind of shove them in your face, whether you like it or not. Pluto's going to say, hey, you need to deal with this. If you truly want to get what you find pleasurable, if you truly want to embrace this kind of beautiful energy, you're going to have to deal with these deeper, darker matters at hand, so to speak. Rather than just, some of us may want to just run away from these darker issues, oh, it's fine. I dealt with that before. I don't need to work with that. Think again. We may have to deal with some of these things, okay? And much of that, dealing with these things, much of what I mean by that is just sitting with them, allowing them to be. Where's the darkness in yourself? Where's the darkness in others and in your life? Darkness is not always necessarily bad. I think sometimes when we run away from darkness, it just creates more darkness. If you just allow it to be and you sit with it, you can actually reduce some of that tension or that fear or insecurity that surrounds those issues. Okay, the other aspect that we're talking about today is Mercury trining Neptune. So, kind of interesting, both the inner planets are trining outer planets. On a very general level, that means that we're bringing in, I'm picturing ropes that don't don't misconstrue that. Anyway, but we're bringing in that outer planetary energy from Pluto and Neptune into the inner solar system. And basically, outer planetary energy is weird, right? It's otherworldly, it's strange, it's abstract, it's like metaphysical and deep and dark and kind of spiritual. So it's weird. So basically, Monday's gonna feel weird, and you have to combine that with everything else I talked about today. It's gonna be chaotic, passionate, steamy, as well as weird, otherworldly, strange, right? Other synonyms for weird. Okay, so that's one thing that's going on today. Specifically with Mercury trining Neptune, this is kind of a weird one. Mercury in Scorpio trining Neptune in Pisces. Um, so again, bringing in that Neptunian energy. What information are you coming across today? It may be spiritual in nature. It may be unique, and it may be maybe metaphysical in nature. What is the information? I don't know, you could also have like psychic flashes today. You may just suddenly realize things. Oh my god, I can't believe I didn't realize this. There could be epiphanies, spiritual awakenings, things along those lines. It may have to do with the information that you're coming across. It may also just have to do with just streaks of intuition from seemingly nowhere. Oh, I can't believe I didn't realize that. Much of it could be emotional as well, because these are in water signs. They are emotional in nature, so it could just be a feeling that comes to you out of nowhere, that there's some kind of truth there, there's some kind of increased understanding in that feeling. There's a lot of intelligence in emotion. I think that's one of emotion's greatest strengths, okay? Or it can it can be a strength if we use it that way. So a lot for Monday, really action-packed day, a weird day for sure, a crazy day. Moving forward to Tuesday, November 7th, this becomes a lot more stable and harmonious. By now, Moon is fully in Virgo, and the first thing I want to talk about is Moon trining Jupiter. You can see in the late morning Eastern Standard Time, Moon makes that trine to Jupiter. So this is really beautiful. Moon is in Virgo, so yes, we're focused on being organized, practical, disciplined, no nonsense. Let's be realistic about everything, right? But sometimes that can be a downer for some of us that like to be a little bit more free spirited. But we've got Jupiter helping us here. A trine. Um, well, technically, Moon is trining Jupiter, so it's bringing in that Jupiter energy. This is harmonious. This is lucky. This is fun. This is abundant energy. Jupiter and Taurus is bringing some much needed abundance, right? So how do I put this? So it's like we are being very realistic today. There's so much energy, so much focus on Scorpio and Virgo, since the Sun, Moon, and all the inner planets are in Scorpio and Virgo right now, right? So those are supporting us and being very realistic, kind of cynical actually. However, at the same time, we've got that trine from Jupiter in the morning, bringing in that much needed optimism as well. So I think there's this kind of beautiful balance there, specifically, all morning and maybe early afternoon Eastern Standard Time. And then as we get into the later part of the day, into the evening, I don't usually get so specific with these forecasts, but as we get into the later part of the day in the evening Eastern Standard Time, Moon does move away from that trine to Jupiter, so we don't have that abundant energy anymore as much. However, as the Moon does so, it approaches a sextile to the Sun, which is honestly, I think that's even better because an aspect with the Sun between the Moon and the Sun is going to dominate the energies a lot more than an aspect between the Moon and a planet like Jupiter. Okay. So Moon approaching the sextile to the Sun, it supports us in being in a collective good mood. That's how I like to put it. It's harmonious. We've got the heavy emotion from Scorpio, the intuition, the instinct, but we've also got the practicality of Virgo, the groundedness of Moon in Virgo, right? So they combine together in kind of a beautiful, easy way. It's well-rounded, but the energies are basically diverse enough to be interesting and multifaceted, but similar enough to blend in a natural and kind of stable way, right? So beautiful stuff, really beautiful as we close out Tuesday. Moving right along to Wednesday, November 8th. This is the day where Venus enters Libra. So, again, I can't help but to breathe a sigh of relief. I think this is going to be so needed for so many of us. Venus is finally at home now. I'm picturing this like woman or girl who had to maybe I'm picturing like the Red Riding Hood story, I think, where she has to go through these gnarly woods, nasty woods, to get to grandma's house. I don't know if that's a good analogy. But in other words, like what I'm trying to say is Venus has gone through, this very dark, long road, difficult road, and she's finally gotten to her home, which is so comfortable. I don't know why it's in such an obscure place or whatever in this analogy, but you get what I'm saying. Venus is finally in Libra where she's at home, so that energy of that desire, that pleasure. I struggle with these analogies so bad, but let's stay focused. That desire, that pleasure, that abundance from Venus is going to be so much more natural now, and it's so much easier. Libra energies likes to keep things light. So again, Venus and Libra is saying, let's chill out. We don't have to be so intense. Yeah, we've got 3 planets in Scorpio still, but don't worry about all that. Let's just have some fun. Let's enjoy ourselves, right? And again, it's not that Scorpio energies are bad at all. It's just that they're so intense, and we've had so much intensity between the Scorpio placements and the eclipse season, right? So that's all I'm saying. Any energy, if you have too much of it, it's going to cause some intensity and some problems, right? Maybe some intense strengths, but also some intense, it's unbalanced, okay? So Venus in Libra is bringing some much needed balance. At least that's how I see it, all right? What else? Also, there's a general lack of air. Venus is now the only air planet. We didn't have any air planets at all before that. And when you lack air, it is what it sounds like. You can feel stifled, you feel suffocated, everything is pressured. I'm picturing like being claustrophobic, being in like a dark, cramped area. There's no room to breathe, right? So having, Venus in Libra where she's at home, it's gonna expand the walls a little bit, give us room to breathe, and just be free and be silly and just have a little fun. Let's be quirky, right? That's what Venus and Libra um, likes, and it's supporting us in having good conversations, enjoying each other's company, etc., etc. I could rave about this on and on, but I want to continue forward here. So we do have one aspect to talk about today. That would be Mercury sextiling Pluto. Mercury at once it reaches. I thought of not doing this forecast, but I wanted to get it out to you. I really did. Mercury at 28 degrees. It's such an unproductive cough. It's the worst. Okay, Mercury at 28 degrees Scorpio, sextiles Pluto at 28 degrees Capricorn. Again, it's a little bit reminiscent of that trine that Venus made to Pluto, because this is a harmonious aspect. It's a sextile, but it's with Pluto, which is so dark and intense, and it tends to bring up, insecurities and power struggles. Um, let's see here. Mercury, Pluto kind of rules over Mercury, sort of. If you want to, some people use the outer planets as ruling planets, and some people don't. But anyway, if we look at Pluto and Capricorn, Mercury and Scorpio, they're heavy energies, right? Yes, this is a harmonious dynamic, but it's heavy, it's intense. How do I put this? So Mercury sextiling Pluto, this could indicate us learning about some really intense power dynamics, insecurities, things that may have been going on for a long time, but that we didn't know about, things having to do with the structure of our lives. So what is the structure of your life? Who are the authority figures in your life? Are you an authority figure in your life? I hope you are. What are the laws, the regulations? What is the structure that's holding everything together? What is the foundation? Much of this could affect us as a collective as well. So, the government, the laws, the rules, the regulations, the economy. These are the areas where we may learn some uncomfortable truths with this type of aspect. These truths may be harmonious in some kind of way. So maybe it's good to learn these truths, but they're still dark truths, right? They're coming to us in a relatively easy way, but it's still, I wouldn't say it's necessarily sugar coated. It's real, it's raw, it's kind of a slow pitch, but it's like a hard ball and a slow pitch. You know how terrible I am with my sports analogies. But anyway, so yeah, pay attention to what information are you coming across. This could also be intuitive flashes as well. And remember, with Pluto, it's deep, it's dark, it's coming from the underworld, so to speak. It's coming from the depths of your subconscious. Those back rooms within your soul that you don't even like to look at because they're so creepy and cobwebby. You know what I mean? I hope you do. But those are the areas where we're going to receive this information or this communication. We may also just be drawn toward issues that are more morbid in nature, darker in nature at this time. That's where our mental focus is today. Okay, let's move forward. So Thursday, November 9th, this is the day where Moon enters Libra. It actually does so very early in the day, Eastern Standard Time. So pretty much all day we've got Moon in Libra. I think this is beautiful. As soon as the Moon enters Libra, it's going to conjoin and then, pass Venus in Libra. And as it does so, it's so beautiful. I love this. Moon and Venus, they're great friends. These are both the more feminine energies of our solar system. So they both support us in being receptive. Let's be open to others. Let's smooth things over, rather than going after what we want in such like a brutal and kind of tactless way. Let's use discipline and diplomacy. Let's be civilized, right? That's what these energies are supporting us in doing. Let's have empathy for each other. And if you are trying to, cause some trouble or, get what you want at someone else's loss, you're going to do so in kind of a low energy way, at least physically, and in more of a kind of a sneaky way, right? So it's not necessarily that this is all sunshine and rainbows. It's just that it's a more like civilized energy, so to speak. Civilized doesn't always necessarily mean better. Look at civilization and all the problems that we have, right? So that's kind of the energy here. What else? Moon and Venus, they're both pretty at home in Libra. Venus is very much at home in Libra. She has rulership there. Moon technically does not rule Libra, but Moon does great in the Venus ruled signs, right? Moon in Libra is supporting us in, rather than being so intensely emotional and acting without thinking, Moon in Libra is supporting us in, thinking before we act. How do other people feel? What are going to be the ramifications, the consequences of my actions or of my words? These things we are more naturally aware of when we have any placement in Libra, but specifically the moon. Okay. So, really harmonious stuff. I really like this because, again, this is lessening the intensity. Libra energies keep things light. Let's keep it casual. Let's just have fun and enjoy ourselves. Let's not be too serious. Yes, it's still Scorpio season, but Moon and Venus in Libra are lightening the mood quite a bit. Also, look at where the moon is now at this point relative to the sun. We are closing out the lunar cycle. And what better sign to do that than with moon in Libra, right? So, in other words, we're getting away from all that intensity. Let's just chill out. Let's be mellow. Let's be civilized, right? That's basically the vibe on Thursday. That's pretty much it. I'm gonna move on. Oh, actually, last thing about that. So we are entering like a dark moon phase at this point. So that can result in things being a bit darker in nature. I would say maybe darker, but a word I would use would be like subdued. The energy just isn't really there. There's less energy, which I think is actually great in this case because we've had so much energy. I don't know if you've been feeling it, but I've hardly been able to sleep. I feel like my nervous system is fried lately, and I don't think I'm the only one. There have just been so many changes, so much intensity with Scorpio season and eclipse season. It's been so much energy, so much change in such little time. So now, with the moon closing out the lunar cycle, moon and Venus in Libra, this is a less energetic phase. It's showing us maybe lacking energy, maybe even lacking motivation to some degree. We may just want to chill out and rest, but I think that's exactly what the doctor ordered today. If that's is that the right phrase? I think that's exactly what would be really great for us right now. Let's just chill out, let's rest. We're still processing everything. Let's give ourselves time. Let's be patient. What better sign to do that? What better energies than Moon and Venus in Libra, supporting that patience and just generally that chill energy. I know that's not a professional way to put it, but I think that really sums it up. Moving to Friday, November 10th, Moon continues through Libra. Again, I'm not going to rant and rave about this because I already did for Thursday, but that continues for Friday and it's beautiful. Let's just chill out. We've had such an intense, really all of October was so intense. And even the beginning of this week was so dramatic and intense. So let's just chill out, for these last couple days of the week, right? Let's just be mellow and chill out, right? That's what these energies are supporting. Okay, Moon in Libra. We talked about that already. Less energy, more chill, more subdued. Okay, let's pay attention to Mercury. So this is the day where Mercury leaves Scorpio and enters Sagittarius. So this is kind of exciting. Sagittarius vibes. Sagittarius is best way to put it would be it is like holiday season in the West, in the United States. It's not really Christmas time necessarily, but it's like holiday time, almost Thanksgiving, Christmas is kind of approaching, right? So it's kind of fun, festive times. No, it's not technically Sagittarius season yet. The sun is not quite there yet, but Mercury is there. So we are starting to get that little bit of a shift toward, in that direction, right? Mercury's the first, and Sun and Mars will be quick to follow over these following days and weeks. So that's generally the focus. And, on a more technical, like astrological level, Mercury, of course, represents the information, the communication, the learning, the information. I already said that. With Mercury and Sagittarius, it is in detriment. So again, that's supporting us in thinking outside the box, looking in areas we might not normally look, being open to information we might not normally be open to. Let's be philosophical. Let's question, let's ask the bigger questions, things like that. So that's a good time. Again, like I said in the intro, Mercury is in detriment in Sagittarius, but I do think this is one of the easier detriment transits to experience. Sagittarius is strange for Mercury to transit through, but Sagittarius is still very intellectual, right? and Mercury rules the intellect. So we're still, very intellectual in nature. The reason why Mercury is in detriment in Sagittarius, though, is because Mercury is all about prioritizing and assessing everything, measuring everything, right? How much is this thing worth relative to that thing? And I'm not just talking about the price of it, but the value of it. How much does this kind of weigh, so to speak? How much time should we spend on this issue or that issue? It's constantly assessing everything. And with Sagittarius, Sagittarius is one of, I don't want to say the worst signs for that, but it just doesn't operate that way. With Sagittarius, everything is important, right? Or the importance is subjective. Oh, I feel this in my heart, therefore this is so vital, this is crucial, whatever I'm feeling in the moment. There's nothing wrong with that at all. There's something to learn here for sure. We can learn from Sagittarius's persuasion or persuasiveness, from its inspiration and passion, right? It's just that when you have Mercury there, Mercury's about how we're thinking, communicating, and measuring things. So in other words, it's not an objective energy, it is subjective, right? So it's great for having inspiration and being very passionate and all that. Not so great at being objectively correct or measuring things out, if that makes sense. Okay. And I'm not dissing on Mercury and Sagittarius. It's just that it's an out of place energy. It's supporting us in being open to strange and unusual abstract ideas, things of that nature. Okay, and remember, I've said this in a previous forecast, but Saturn is still at 0 degrees Pisces. It just recently turned direct, and it's still hanging out at that same degree that it's been at for many weeks now. I've been looking at it. So what does that mean? What does that have to do with anything? So that means that every time any planet enters any sign, it makes some kind of aspect to Saturn, which I think is just kind of interesting. So Mercury entering Sagittarius, this means that Mercury squares Saturn as soon as it enters Sagittarius today. So this could symbolize some kind of crisis or breaking point or sudden change related to how we are thinking about and learning about the structure of our lives. Boom. Specifically the structure of our emotions, our spirituality, our mental health. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Um, our mental health, our emotional health, our spirituality. What are the confines of those things? What are the limitations? That's the area that you may have some kind of sudden breakthrough or shift in awareness in, and this could be discomforting, could be disconcerting, right? Because Saturn is such a harsh energy. It's so brutal. It's fair, but it's heavy. It's definitely not a fun energy. I wouldn't say necessarily. So again, pay attention to what you are learning, what you're thinking about today. Could be heavy in nature, but it could be supporting you in. You're gonna hate me for this, but it could be supporting us in being more responsible, being more structured, more disciplined, specifically with our emotional health, spirituality, etc., etc. Our philosophy, our attitudes, maybe things like that. Okay, Saturday, November 11th, Moon continues through Libra, and then it will actually leave Libra and enter Scorpio right about midday Eastern Standard Time. Looks like just afternoon Eastern Standard Time is when the Moon will leave Libra and enter Scorpio. And again, remember, the Moon is so close to the Sun at this point, it's not visible at all. You'd have to be right around either sunrise or sunset to see the Moon. Which one is it? I'm quizzing you because I actually have forgotten this. I used to know, but if the Moon makes this kind of angle with the Sun, would it be right around dawn that you'd see it, or right around dusk? Because it's one of them, not the other. I'd be impressed if one of you knows that. I would like to know that, and I don't want to look it up. But yeah, so basically, the moon has little to no light. It's hardly visible at all, for 90 something percent of the day. So in other words, the energy of the emotion, the intuition, is kind of MIA. It's not that it's not there completely. It's just that it is like transient. It's abstract. It's in the ether. That emotional energy not being so readily available, it does indicate kind of a less of an energetic vibe. This is more of a chill phase, more of a rest phase. Yes, Moon is entering Scorpio, which is in its fall position. This does rile us up a little bit more than Moon in Libra typically would. However, again, consider the relationship of the Sun and Moon. It's the very end of the lunar cycle. We're closing out this very eventful lunar cycle that we've had, finally. And in doing so, this is the least energetic part of the lunar cycle. It's not that the energy isn't there necessarily, it's just that it's in the ether. This is what is making such a prime environment for manifestation. And that's what we tend to experience near a new moon. We are closing in on that new moon. So, the energy is in the ether, in the subconscious, it's in the spirit, in the soul, or whatever you believe in. Um, again, this is really a time where it may behoove us to focus even more than we always do, right? Because I know you're always thinking about your intentions, right? This is an excellent time to focus even more on our intentions as we are getting so close to a new moon because of that ripe manifestation energy. Okay. All right. That was more than enough about that. For Saturday, oh, remember what I was just talking about. So as soon as the moon enters Scorpio, it trines Saturn. So this is very bittersweet as well. Moon is now in fall in Scorpio, so it's showing the energy is subdued, but at the same time, we're feeling a bit emotionally restless. There's something in the ether. There's something that we can't quite put our finger on, but it's kind of like riling us up on a deep level, right? But as it's doing so, Moon trining Saturn, it's bringing in that need for discipline and heaviness. Again, how's your mental health? How's your spirituality? If you want to know how this affects you personally, look to where 0 degrees Pisces and Scorpio fall in your chart. 0 degrees Pisces in particular is an area in your chart where there may be some need right now to be a leader, to be realistic, to be disciplined. Okay. So that is coming to the forefront on Saturday, specifically like midday, early afternoon, Saturday Eastern Standard Time. This need to be disciplined and realistic is coming to the forefront for all of us in different ways. Okay, lastly, for Sunday, November 12th, Moon continues through Scorpio. We get so close to that new moon, but we're not technically going to have it till Monday, November 13th. At least for, these longitudes around where I and probably you live, in the western part of the globe. We're not going to have that new moon until tomorrow. However, it's one of those things where, no, we're not technically experiencing the new moon yet, but on the other hand, we kind of are at the same time. Moon is not going to conjoin the sun today, but Moon is in Scorpio with the sun. Sun is also in Scorpio. They're pretty close to a conjunction. They're close to each other. It's like they're in the same house. They're not in the same room yet, so it's not a new moon. They're not together, but they're in the same house, so they're like nearing each other, so to speak. They're on the same property. So what does that mean? So again, it's continuing a lot of the themes I've already talked about. It's continuing. There's some kind of like slightly unsettled energy with the Scorpio energy, and it's pushing us to make some kind of change, not so much physically yet, but more like in our subconscious, in our mind, in our philosophies, in the inner workings of the cogs and the wheels, spinning deep inside of us, so to speak. What's going on that deep kind of level? Is there some kind of a need for change? What are your intentions like? Um, Scorpio in particular deals with a lot of things, but it deals with issues surrounding intimacy. Can I rely on other people? Can I trust other people? Where are my investments, my commitments? How am I supporting my needs in a long-term kind of way? I may have to do so with other people or other companies or organizations, things like that. So what is the nature of my relationships? What's the nature of my commitments, my obligations? Can I depend on these things? Am I dependable as well for those in my life? These are the issues that come up with the Scorpio transits, specifically, getting so close to this Scorpio new moon. Just kind of think about all these things. What are your intentions in these areas? Have those intentions changed? This is an area generally for all of us where there has been a lot of change over the last few weeks. So So yeah, now's the time to be thinking about all those things and kind of focusing on our intentions. On a general level, this weekend does look nice in the sense that it does look relatively peaceful. Yes, the moon is in fall in Scorpio. Yes, there is some slight, like, it's slightly unsettled, but generally speaking, it's still a restful energy. Does that make sense? So it's still great for resting, but like, there's something very deep inside of us that is shifting, and we can kind of feel it. We're gonna really see that as we go through next week. Okay, but that's what I have for you for this week. I hope I'm not coughing by the next. I hope I'm not coughing by the next forecast because it's really bad. Okay, that's what I have for you this week. It's a very interesting week, very dynamic. I'm glad that there aren't any like major shifts this week. Other than the inner planet shifting, that is major, but it's not totally like it's not going to shake up our world. So I'm glad for that. Next week we do have that new moon at 20 degrees Scorpio. That's the main thing. Yeah, and be there or be square. I look forward to talking to you next week. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week.